Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the effects we have seen in cultural groups, educational access focusing in rural areas. So, today we're going to be focusing on Mexican American groups and how they are specifically affected by this. And when you think about an individual's socioeconomic status, they are often represented through the highest form of education they have received and what their community career is focused on, what parts of the community they live in, and more personal things such as their ethnicity and religion can also come into play. Some barriers that are seen have been faced with low socioeconomic statuses are the discriminations they face, what access they have in the area of the community that they live in, and speaking a different language or knowing a small vocabulary of the English language. And there are many ethnic groups that face these challenges, and it is important to remember these people of different backgrounds are going to have different experiences, but there are many programs that are focused on making a change. So, it is very common when a student of Hispanic background enters a classroom setting. They may be first generation students or families coming to the United States for better opportunities, and one of the main drivers of this are education. However, the education that they're being introduced to is not one that the parents are familiar with, that they grew up with. So it might cause a challenge for the parent-student relationship in the classroom. So upon completion, it has been shown that only around 11% of Hispanics have earned their bachelor's degree compared to Blacks, which come at around 17%, Asians are around 49%, and whites are at 30%, according to a statistic that was done earlier in the years. And parents of these kids often immigrated from their countries due to the struggles that they were facing, and again, to just give their student, the first generation, or their child, the first generation student, better opportunity. And something else that they struggle with in socioeconomic status is occupation opportunities. So, something that they might face is the quality of the employment that they can find, and they may also face gender and ethnic a wage gap inequalities. And this can affect a person's psychological self identity because then this leads to their career and their mental aspects, and also give stressors if financial is not being completed. And this can also be impacted by living in a rural area. And this can put a demographic at a disadvantage because it is very important to understand your neighbors and your neighborhood, which is something that we reflected on class late into the semester. And this can help spread awareness of issues within the community. And this was especially seen during COVID times when not all of the areas had access to technology they needed for remote courses. So during COVID, everything was online and heavily relied on things such as the internet, such as iPads, computers, and so on. And being in a rural area, some places did not have access to all of this. So this affected a child's upbringing because they did not have the typical socialize, go to school schedule, 8 to 3, you're around kids your age. They did everything at home with the parent. And again, some did not have the tools needed. So this affected students in elementary and even college. So a great range of students. And this affected them by their behavior and their personality development because the child had to transition from what they had known to something new, which was an in-person setting. And to us, that may seem normal, but to them, that was completely different to what they had been used to growing up with. And here we can apply Vygotsky's sociocultural theory of cognitive development, because again, we can see from birth to around 6 years old, they are being raised by their own beliefs, practicing their own ethnic cultures. And once they are introduced to other kids and experiences in the outside world without their parents, they begin to learn new concepts and they begin to use their brains in new ways, and they learn new knowledge with the interactions they have with other kids or with new adult figures. And it's just very interesting to see how that has changed this generation. And as they grow older, they will end up discovering themselves, and then they'll see an overlap of their personality, which focuses on intersectionality of an individual, such as their gender, their sex, their religion, their beliefs, and practicing again going more into the cultural aspect. So, like mentioned before, Mexican Americans face discrimination within job opportunities and pay. And in a recent study done in around 2022, I believe, it was shown that about 4 in 10 Hispanic college students faced discrimination or some sort of backlash, whether it was intentional or also, like we've talked about in class, subconscious prejudice does exist, unfortunately. But there are programs put in place because a lot of these kids said that they felt like it was their time to withdraw, or the challenges they were facing, it was causing a real struggle and impact in their personal life. But schools have been doing a really good job at implementing programs and policies to help take action to the cause. And for first generation students, also applying to universities can be intimidating itself. And this is, this is a new system that they don't really know, and there are a lot of resources, but you're just so overwhelmed you don't know where to start. And being in a new system, it can be really, really stressful. But luckily, new systems can be used within schools and online to help the students walk through this process. And Mexican Americans also fear, there's also a fear with health programs. And it's not uncommon for people of color to neglect their health care because of healthcare concerns and practices. And this kind of goes back to subconscious discrimination, that the doctor may not feel like they are doing it, but the way the patient is being cared for, they don't feel as cared for. So it makes them less likely to want to return to their primary caregiver. But there are local health departments that offer assistance and programs for lower income families in these situations. And also the care may be intimidating, but also things such as health care and cost and medication can also be very intimidating to people who are in low socioeconomic statuses. And something else that people in Mexican American ethnicities may face whenever being a student is the language barrier. In Mexican American household, it is very common to speak both Spanish and English. And here they are demonstrating a cultural frame switch, which is primarily using their first language in their household with their family. And you typically use English outside of their homes in like schools, grocery store. And that is whenever they're putting in place their framing switch. So lastly, we have variety. And it is important to remember that there are many ethnic groups in America that face rural socioeconomic struggles. And there are also ethnic groups in different levels of socioeconomics. And every background practice is going to have different beliefs and come from different cultures that have their own unique values. And luckily, there are many programs being put in place and some that are developing to help and reach out to low socioeconomic populations for improvements on healthcare and educational accessibility. Thank you.